Cheerleading is a sport many people see as easy or something only popular people do in high school to get with the football players. I'm a competitive cheerleader, so I can tell you firsthand there is a huge difference between sideline cheer and competitive cheer. Even if you have never cheered in your life or know absolutely nothing about cheer, most of us have seen cheerleaders perform, whether it's at a football game or a basketball game or even at a cheer competition. Most people have an opinion on whether they believe cheer is a sport or not. Their opinion usually depends on how much they know about the sport. In this speech, I will be discussing what cheerleading is, the history of cheerleading, and how it has impacted my life. Cheerleading is an American invention. There are 3.82 million participants in this sport in the United States. For decades, cheerleading has been seen as a feminized sport. Female athletes were relegated to the sidelines physically and metaphorically speaking. It was seen as the sport that the pretty and popular girl did to get with the boys. This became a symbol for many women's sports activists and second-wave feminists of the place athletically inclined females occupied in the sport world. The third wave generation of cheerleaders made a difference in that and challenged the negative stereotypes by making a sport on their own terms. Competitive cheer is a whole different world than sideline cheer is. Competitive cheer is a sport where cheer squads come together and perform a routine that is typically 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. A routine has 4 components to it: stunts, jumps, tumbling, and dance. At a competition, teams are judged by a panel of cheerleading experts on difficulty and execution. Cheerleaders work hard all year round to perfect their routine. This sport isn't for everyone. Just like football and basketball isn't for everyone, it takes time and practice. Cheerleading takes a lot of upper body strength for stunting and to remain sharp throughout the routine. It also takes a lot of confidence so they can perform all the stunts and be able to hit the routine. You must be in good cardiovascular condition as well. It takes a lot of energy to get through a routine when you're moving and jumping around the whole time. It takes a lot of time and commitment. You have to practice every day with your team for at least 2 hours. It is a sport where you have to work outside of practice to get good at it, like tumbling. A good cheerleader also always has good sportsmanship. Cheer is a team sport, so if one person isn't there, that can throw everything off. Now that we have discussed what cheerleading is and what it takes to be a competitive cheerleader, let's talk about the history of cheer. The history of cheerleading has roots that go back to ancient times. However, cheerleading, how it's practiced today, goes back to the late 1800s. Football and cheer are linked. The very first organized cheer took place at an 1880s Princeton football game. The cheer was rather primitive by today's standards, but it served the purpose of getting the crowd excited and the team pumped. Graduate Thomas Peoples later brought the game of football with him to the University of Minnesota, and he also brought cheerleading with it. Peoples himself led the crowd in what has become the traditional Minnesota cheer still heard at today's games. Despite Peoples' efforts, it was actually Johnny Campbell who gets credited for modern cheer. On November 2nd, 1898, Campbell and several other men were officially selected to lead the yelling. This was the first pep squad ever formed. Men were the primary cheerleaders in the sport. Even though women did cheer along from the stands, women were finally admitted to the University of Minnesota's cheerleading squad, and cheers began to evolve from simple crowd chants. Various gymnastics moves and acrobatics were added to the standard cheers, and were immediate crowd pleasers. Cheerleading had also become serious enough to get its own organization. This is when American Cheerleading Association was founded. From the 1950s forward, cheerleading would continue to become more popular and grow. Now that we have discussed the history of cheerleading, let's talk about how cheer has affected my life personally. Cheerleading has had a huge impact on my life. I started cheering when I was 8 years old. I cheered for my local cheer team in Wheatland. I have always loved cheer ever since I was a little girl, and I was so excited when my mom asked me if I wanted to cheer. Cheer at that age is just learning the basics, but you need all those steps to become a great cheerleader, just like any other sport. I am currently still cheering competitively for a level 6 adult team. I use cheer as my outlet to get away from the world. It is my passion. Cheerleading is part of who I am. It's something I do simply because I love it. I hope these last few minutes have been helpful in helping you further your knowledge in the sport of cheerleading and better your understanding of what cheerleading is, as well as how it came to be. Whether you are a huge fan of cheerleading or know nothing about it, I hope I persuaded you to realize cheer is an amazing sport. Next time you see a cheerleader or are having a conversation about cheerleading, you can now have the knowledge to explain what cheerleading is.